Alright, so we are back once again for another wave of the Booster Course Pass. Hard to believe we've been doing this for a year now. We have 8 new tracks, which feature 1 new Game Boy Advance course, 1 new DS course, 1 GameCube course, 1 Wii course, and 3 Mario Kart Tour tracks. Oh, plus a brand new course, which was probably made for Tour, but they won't tell us that until a week after it's been released. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive in. Riverside Park actually turned out really good. For me, so far at least, the other GBA tracks have felt incredibly underwhelming, but this one is actually top notch. There's some really cool gimmicks I'd like to point out in this track as well. First of all, they added frickin' walking piranha plants. And not only that, but they also carry and drop mushrooms throughout the entirety of the track. Also, if you're ever in a tight situation, you can throw a shell at the piranha to send it flying and pick up a mushroom that was dropped for an extra boost. These neat features just really add to the craziness of this track, and on top of it, it's got a killer soundtrack. And for a Booster Course Pass track, actually looks pretty good. It's definitely my favorite track in Wave 4. And if you guys are wondering, it's not a glitch. Nintendo actually made good looking grass. Wow. Shifting gears over to the DS track, we have Airship Fortune. Sorry, I meant to say another Mario Circuit. In all fairness, the track is actually well done, and you can genuinely tell Nintendo put legitimate effort into this one. However, that just doesn't stop it from looking like that same generic landscape we've seen over and over again. It's nothing worth glorifying over, but I still enjoyed it for what it was, and I think most people will still get a kick out of it. It's good to see that Waluigi is still characterized as an important part of the Mario Kart franchise, because his tracks are some of the most fun to play. Waluigi Stadium wasn't ever really on my list, but regardless, it's no disappointment. Graphically speaking, it's definitely on par with Riverside Park. It looks really good, and while there are times where the track feels a bit tiring, it's got plenty of new shortcuts that should keep you motivated to reach that first place title. Overall, I had fun with it, and it's one of the few Booster Course Pass tracks that I would pick when playing online. 1, 2, 3, 5? I always thought those were the lyrics at the beginning of DK Summit. Not sure why, but anytime I played this back on the Wii, I'd always say it out loud as I started the track. I loved playing this course as a kid, and it was one of the few courses I'd always immediately pick if I had family over. There's really not much I can say that you haven't seen. It's a good course, and it's done pretty well. My only complaints would be that the new version of the soundtrack simply doesn't work for me, and at times certain areas of the course felt a bit more tighter and squished than I remember. Alright, onto the tour tracks. I'm going to keep this brief because I really don't care for them and never have. Amsterdam Drift is very similar to London Loop and Sydney Sprint. In terms of texture placements and scenery, it's just really generic and way too familiar. I thought the addition of the trolleys and underwater section was kinda cool, but it's unnecessarily squished, and honestly, it feels like there was little work done to it. Bangkok Rush felt kinda like Shy Guy Bazaar from the 3DS, with the hint of its own signature city flavor. There are some cool areas like the low water section with different types of boats, but again, it's way too squished and just pretty boring after a while. I know these tracks aren't meant for people like me, but still, couldn't you have done anything to make it feel a bit more like Mario Kart 8? And this is where they do get one thing right, because there's actually a third tour track in this wave, and it's actually decent. Singapore Speedway, with the exception of the generic city area, has some really cool sections throughout the track. The neon waterfalls and speedring areas are really fun to glide through, and the sections where you drive on top of towers was actually pretty fun. This is hands down the best tour track so far, in my opinion, and I was really glad to finally enjoy one. And finally, we have Yoshi's Island, a brand new course, apparently. Well, the great thing about this track is that a rainbow didn't vomit all over it and call it Sky High Sunday. It's actually creative and original, and what I really like about this course is that it parallels a lot of what the Animal Crossing and Hyrule Circuit tracks did really well, and then basically builds on it. Instead of doing a trick shot through the Hyrule Sword, you can actually drive through a wing cloud while gliding in the air, and it'll make this cool sound effect and then activate an awesome shortcut for you. The track doesn't look like anything special. I mean, graphically speaking, it's definitely made for tour, no question about it, but that didn't stop me from enjoying something new and refreshing instead of just constant ports. And it's not Sky High Sunday, so that's a start. They also brought back Birdo. I guess that's kind of cool. Personally, I'd be more interested in some other characters, but, technically it's a start. I wouldn't be surprised if character updates continue after the Booster Course Pass is completed, considering we still unfortunately have a couple more years of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at the minimum. Overall, Wave 4 is a fun addition to the Booster Course Pass. It's definitely much weaker than Wave 2 and Wave 3, mostly due to the addition of a third tour track and another Mario circuit. Graphically speaking, it is great to see Nintendo start improving their courses, finally. But now that they're committed to it, I can't help but wonder how much better they all could have looked if Nintendo had cared since the start. In the end, it's still a fun time, and I think fans will get a kick out of some of the new content being released, but don't expect as much this time around. For more reviews and discussion videos on video games and films, stick with Marcus Network.